Today, we're uncovering 20 unsettling facts about some of history's most iconic figures. From shocking secrets to disturbing deeds, these stories will make you see them in a completely different light. And trust me, the last one will leave you speechless. Frederick Bauer, the man who invented the Pringles can, was so proud of his creation that when he passed away in 2008, he had a very unusual request. He wanted his ashes to be buried in a Pringles can. His family honored his wish, placing a portion of his remains in a classic Pringles can before burying him. Bauer, who was a chemist and food storage technician, revolutionized the way chips were packaged, ensuring they wouldn't break during transport. His family humorously debated which flavor to use, but ultimately decided on the original can, the one that started it all. This strange but fitting tribute has become a quirky piece of trivia about one of the most iconic snack containers in history. When we think of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, we picture a musical genius who composed some of the greatest works in classical music history. But what many people don't know is that the renowned composer had a secret passion for writing vulgar and sometimes explicit songs. One of the most infamous examples is a song titled Leck mich im Arsch, which translates to "Lick me in the..." This wasn't just a one-off occurrence. Several of Mozart's letters and compositions reveal a bawdy sense of humor that might surprise those who only know him for his symphonies and operas. Some scholars believe that Mozart's crude humor was a way of letting off steam from the pressures of his career and life. Others argue that this side of his personality shows how even the most sophisticated artists have a mischievous human side. Despite the playful nature of these songs, they were rarely performed during his lifetime. But in recent years, they've gained a strange kind of fame, adding an unexpected twist to Mozart's legacy. Genghis Khan is remembered for his brutal military campaigns, which resulted in the deaths of millions as his Mongol Empire spread across Asia and Europe. But what's often overlooked is the surprising environmental impact of his conquests. As Khan's armies wiped out entire populations, vast areas of land were left abandoned, allowing forests to grow back. These forests absorbed millions of tons of carbon dioxide, effectively cooling the planet. In fact, some scientists estimate that Khan's empire led to the reforestation of an area the size of France, making him an unlikely contributor to climate change, albeit through devastating means. While his actions were undeniably destructive, the unintended consequence was a reduction in atmospheric CO2 levels, a phenomenon not replicated until the Industrial Revolution. It's a strange and unsettling irony that a man responsible for so much death also played a role in cooling the earth, albeit through brutal and devastating means. Pharaoh Pepi II of ancient Egypt, believed to have reigned for over 90 years, had an unusual and extreme method for dealing with flies. His hatred for these insects was so intense that he devised a strange solution. Pepi ordered his servants to be covered entirely in honey and stationed near him. The idea was simple. By turning his servants into human fly traps, Pepi could avoid the annoyance of these pests during royal gatherings or daily life. This practice wasn't just about comfort, it showcased the pharaoh's absolute power and disregard for those beneath him. These slaves, covered in honey from head to toe, would have stood in the heat, attracting swarms of flies away from the pharaoh. It's a bizarre example of how rulers like Pepi used both their wealth and control to maintain luxury at any cost. Though the method may seem absurd today, it's a reflection of the extreme measures taken by ancient royalty to preserve their sense of superiority and well-being. Throughout history, human remains were a common ingredient in medicine, a practice that seems shocking by today's standards. Mummy powder, made from the ground remains of mummified bodies, was believed to cure ailments ranging from headaches to internal bleeding. It wasn't just bones. Human fat was often used in balms for wounds, and blood was sometimes drunk, especially in rituals believed to cure epilepsy. In the 17th century, corpse medicine was common across Europe, where even royalty participated. King Charles II of England, for instance, was known to consume king's drops, a remedy made from human skulls to maintain his health. The belief that ingesting parts of the dead could transfer life-giving properties persisted for centuries. Even more disturbing was the use of executed criminals' remains. Their bodies were often taken directly from the gallows to be processed into medicinal powders and potions, believed to hold special powers due to the violent nature of their deaths. These macabre remedies slowly fell out of favor by the 18th century, but they highlight the strange and unsettling lengths to which people went in their quest for health and longevity. In 1945, on a farm in Colorado, a routine chicken slaughter turned into a bizarre spectacle when one chicken survived without its head. Mike, the headless chicken, was intended for dinner, but after his head was chopped off, something strange happened. The axe had missed the jugular vein and left most of Mike's brain stem intact, allowing him to continue living. Mike became a national sensation. His owners fed him by dropping liquid food and water directly into his esophagus, and they traveled around the country, showing off their miraculous bird. Mike even toured sideshows, drawing crowds who marveled at the headless chicken. He lived for an astonishing 18 months before finally passing away due to a blockage in his throat. To this day, Mike's survival remains one of the strangest stories in animal history. Ted Bundy, one of the most notorious serial killers in history, wasn't always known for his horrifying crimes. In the early 1970s, long before his arrest, Bundy worked at a suicide prevention hotline in Seattle. It's disturbing to think that, for a period, this future killer was responsible for helping people in moments of extreme vulnerability. He answered calls from those on the verge of suicide, offering words of comfort and empathy, all while hiding the dark, violent impulses that would later be revealed. What's even more chilling is that one of his co-workers at the hotline was true crime writer Ann Rule, who later penned the famous book, The Stranger Beside Me. At the time, she had no idea that the charming, helpful Bundy would become one of America's most prolific murderers. In fact, Rule described Bundy as a kind and caring individual during their time working together, an image that shattered when his crimes were uncovered. Bundy's time at the hotline stands as one of the most unsettling contradictions in his life. The same man who provided solace to those considering suicide was, behind the scenes, a manipulative predator, planning and executing a string of brutal murders. In 1886, James S. Jameson, heir to the famous whiskey fortune, embarked on an expedition in the Congo. What happened next would tarnish his name forever. Obsessed with witnessing cannibalism firsthand, Jameson purchased a 10-year-old girl from a local tribe, offering her in exchange for this horrifying act. The girl was tied up and killed in front of him, while Jameson calmly sketched the entire scene. Jameson later claimed ignorance, stating that he didn't realize the full extent of what was happening until it was too late. However, his diary tells a different story, detailing the event with chilling precision. He sketched multiple watercolors, capturing the moment of the girl's death and the cannibals eating her flesh. For years this story remained hidden, but one of Jameson's fellow explorers eventually broke the silence, bringing this dark secret to light. Despite Jameson's attempts to defend his actions, the details are clear. This was not an accident, but a premeditated event driven by his twisted curiosity. The revelation of this act, uncovered long after it happened, remains one of the darkest moments linked to a family known for luxury and whiskey. Today, Madame Tussauds Wax Museum is a fun tourist attraction, known for its lifelike wax figures of celebrities and historical figures. But the origins of the museum are far darker. During the French Revolution, the real Madame Tussaud, Marie Grosholz, was imprisoned due to her ties to the royal family. In order to secure her release, she was forced to make death masks of the executed, including King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette. These grim wax molds were used as propaganda by the revolutionaries. Imagine being forced to create likenesses of people who had just been brutally guillotined, preserving their severed heads in wax. The same hands that crafted figures for royalty were now shaping the faces of the executed. This macabre start to her career is far removed from the playful nature of the wax museum as we know it today. Thomas Edison is best known for inventing the light bulb and the phonograph, but one of his lesser-known creations was the world's first talking doll. In 1890, Edison combined his phonograph technology with a wax cylinder inside the doll's body, allowing it to speak pre-recorded phrases. It was an impressive innovation at the time, but there was a problem. The doll's voice was eerie and unsettling. Children found the high-pitched, scratchy recordings terrifying. The phonograph records inside wore out quickly, causing the doll's voice to degrade into something even creepier over time. Coupled with its stiff, lifeless appearance, the talking doll was less of a toy and more of a nightmare. Edison's invention was quickly pulled from the market, and today it's remembered as one of his strangest and most unsettling creations. By the way, if you like our videos in dark part of the history, subscribe to the channel. We post a video every week. Let's continue. The Third Reich, a man responsible for some of the darkest moments in history, had an unexpected fondness for something much more innocent: Disney movies. Of all the animated films, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs stood out as his favorite. Released in 1937, the movie's beautiful animation and storytelling won over audiences worldwide, but his admiration for the film was something few could have imagined. He reportedly watched the movie multiple times and even kept sketches of the characters in his private collection. Adolf's artistic background, he had long dreamed of being a painter, perhaps made him appreciate the skill that went into Disney's work. But this fascination wasn't limited to just passive admiration. In 1938, when Roy Disney visited Germany, he sold the rights to Snow White to the Reich Propaganda Ministry. This allowed Adolf to have private screenings of the film within his inner circle. Some accounts even suggest that Hitler viewed Disney as a representation of the ideal of Aryan beauty, with Snow White herself reflecting the pure and innocent image that fit his distorted worldview. It's a chilling juxtaposition. This man responsible for untold horrors finding joy in something as whimsical as a Disney cartoon. Continuing with World War II, the city of Leningrad, now St. Petersburg, was under siege by Nazi forces for a brutal 872 days. This blockade cut off all supply routes, plunging the city into one of the worst famines in human history. As food supplies dwindled, citizens faced unimaginable starvation. People were forced to eat anything they could find: rats, pets, leather belts, but even those scarce resources soon ran out. As the death toll rose, rumors of cannibalism began to spread. Desperate citizens with no other choice resorted to consuming human flesh to survive. The authorities even formed special anti-cannibalism squads to patrol the city and investigate reports of these acts. Diaries from survivors reveal horrifying accounts of the conditions they faced. Families torn apart by hunger, the constant threat of death, and the grim reality of what some were forced to do to stay alive. By the end of the siege, over 1 million people had perished, many due to starvation. August 1945, 2 atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, resulting in immediate devastation and the deaths of tens of thousands of civilians. But beyond the destruction, something even more haunting remained: shadows. When the bombs detonated, the heat was so intense that it literally imprinted the silhouettes of people and objects onto the ground, walls, and sidewalks. These eerie shadows of the dead became permanent marks, preserving the last moments of life in those very spots. Imagine standing still for just a second, and in that brief instant, your silhouette is forever seared into the earth. These shadows, often found near buildings or sidewalks, serve as ghostly reminders of the power and horror of nuclear weapons. One of the most famous images is that of a person sitting on the steps of a bank in Hiroshima. The blast vaporized them, leaving behind only their shadow, a haunting imprint of their final moments. Despite the passage of time, the shadows remain, and as the world moves on, these ghostly images ensure that the memory of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki will never be truly forgotten. In 2019, archaeologists in Ecuador made a chilling discovery: 2,000-year-old remains of infants wearing helmets made from the skulls of other children. Found in burial mounds, these skull helmets were carefully placed over the heads of the babies, creating a gruesome mystery that experts are still trying to understand. The infants' remains were buried with various objects, suggesting that the skulls may have been used as a form of spiritual protection. Theories suggest the skulls could have been symbolic, offering protection in the afterlife or representing a ritual meant to shield the souls of the deceased infants. The exact meaning remains unclear, but the image of babies buried with skull helmets from other children is a haunting glimpse into the rituals of ancient cultures. In the 13th century, Pope Gregory VII became convinced that cats, especially black cats, were tied to devil worship and witchcraft. He issued a papal decree, Vox in Rama, condemning cats as agents of Satan. This bizarre belief led to the widespread killing of cats across Europe. It wasn't just a few cats either. Entire populations were exterminated, as people believed they were ridding the world of evil. However, this superstition had disastrous consequences. Without cats to control the rodent population, rats carrying fleas, infected with the deadly Yersinia pestis bacterium, thrived. These rats spread what would later become known as the Black Death. Over the next few centuries, the bubonic plague wiped out a significant portion of Europe's population. Some historians believe that the Pope's war on cats indirectly contributed to the spread of this devastating pandemic. It's ironic to think that a crusade against what was seen as evil may have fueled one of the darkest chapters in human history. Imagine waking up one day convinced that the people closest to you, your spouse, your child, or your best friend, are imposters. This is the terrifying reality for those suffering from Capgras delusion, a rare psychological disorder that causes the brain to misidentify familiar faces as strangers. Patients are certain that someone they love has been replaced by a perfect look-alike, and nothing can convince them otherwise. First described in 1923 by French psychiatrist Joseph Capgras, this condition is often associated with brain trauma, dementia, or psychiatric disorders like schizophrenia. One of the most famous cases involved a woman named Madame M, who believed her husband and children had been replaced by imposters. Despite their attempts to reassure her, she was utterly convinced they were no longer her real family. The delusion can cause deep emotional distress and even paranoia, leading some sufferers to avoid or even act violently toward the imposters. It remains one of the most puzzling and frightening mental health conditions, showing just how fragile our perception of reality can be. Chainsaws, now commonly associated with cutting trees, have a much darker and unexpected origin. In the late 18th century, chainsaws were invented not for woodcutting but for assisting in difficult childbirths. Back then, when a baby couldn't pass through the birth canal, doctors had to perform a symphysiotomy, a procedure that involved cutting through the mother's pelvic bone. The original chainsaw was a hand-cranked device, small and far from the monstrous machines we know today, but its purpose was to make these brutal surgeries faster and less painful. Before the invention of modern C-sections, this was often the only option in obstructed labor cases. It's unsettling to think that a tool now associated with power and destruction was once used for such a delicate and painful medical procedure. During World War I, a terrifying and strange event occurred at Oswiec Fortress in Poland in 1915, known as the Attack of the Dead Men. The Germans launched a massive chlorine gas attack on the Russian soldiers defending the fortress. The gas burned their lungs and turned the very air they breathed into acid. The Russians, woefully unprepared, were expected to perish in minutes. But then something horrifying happened. Rather than surrender, about 60 of the Russian soldiers, now coughing up pieces of their own lungs covered in blood and wrapped in rags, launched a counterattack. Their appearance was so ghastly, so zombie-like, that the Germans panicked and fled. The sight of the dead soldiers fighting back became a legend, one that blurred the line between life and death on the battlefield. Pope Alexander VI, born Rodrigo Borgia, was notorious for his scandalous behavior, but one of his more bizarre fascinations was his enjoyment of watching animals mate. Historical records mention that Alexander and his daughter Lucretia would observe horses mating during elaborate feasts. In October 1501, at the infamous Banquet of the Chestnuts, courtesans crawled around picking up chestnuts in front of the Pope and his guests in a lewd display of excess. The debauchery at Alexander's court became legendary, with tales of wild orgies and lavish spectacles designed purely for his entertainment. In the 1890s, in the quiet town of Winton, New Zealand, Minnie Dean ran what was known as a baby farm. Mothers who couldn't care for their children would leave them with Minnie in exchange for a small fee, expecting her to provide care. But the truth of what happened to those children was far more sinister. Over time, authorities noticed a disturbing pattern. Babies left in her care were disappearing. What started as whispers of neglect soon became a full-blown investigation. When police searched her property, they made a grisly discovery: 2 infant bodies, one buried in her garden and another hidden in a hatbox. Dean had even taken out life insurance policies on some of the children, raising suspicion that she had killed them for financial gain. The trial was a sensation. Many claimed the children had died naturally, but her defense couldn't hold up against the mounting evidence. Life insurance policies and the grim state of the children's bodies told a darker story. Her reputation as the baby farmer murderer grew with every newspaper article. In 1895, she was convicted of murder and sentenced to death by hanging, making her the first and only woman to be executed in New Zealand. Thank you for watching. As we've seen, history is filled with shocking, dark, and bizarre moments that are often left untold. Which of these stories surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments below. If you want more of these unsettling historical facts, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for future videos. There's always more to uncover, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.